One of the most interesting cases that we used in our meta-analysis was the case of Peter Teekamp and Paul Gauguin, and the wife of Paul Gauguin, Mette Gauguin, and the possible present reincarnation of Mette, a woman named Michelle Moshe. This is a fascinating case because it was developed by the people themselves to the point that it attracted not only my attention but other researchers' attention because it is so comprehensive. It started out when Peter Teekamp had people tell him, 3 different people at different times, that you are Paul Gauguin. He had no idea about reincarnation and wanted to simply ignore it. But then he started looking at Paul Gauguin's paintings, and he discovered something in Paul Gauguin's paintings that no other art analyst or historian had discovered, which was that Paul Gauguin hid in some part of each picture a miniature of his own face. And Peter Teekamp was shocked because he had been doing that unconsciously all of his life in his own paintings. So he began to take this seriously and started to develop interest in studying Gauguin's paintings, although his own paintings did not resemble in any way, particularly Gauguin's paintings. So what happened is that he met this woman who was very interested in his case as well, and she was helping him to do the research on his own case. And he looked in one of the books on Gauguin and Mette Gauguin's life and looked at his new partner, Michelle Moshe, who was helping him, and said, "You look like Mette." And she was shocked. And then they began to see that they had repeated in their individual lives many of the developmental phases that Gauguin and his wife had participated in the 19th century. Other people began to tell them things to look for. They began to look at their personality traits. They began to look at their physical features. They realized that not only did their facial features resemble the Gauguin's faces of 100 years before, but they realized that their body types were the same. And it's very interesting because Mette Gauguin was a very stocky woman who spoke with a husky voice, and Michelle Moshe is a husky woman speaking with a very strong, gruff kind of voice. And she explains in her own research that Mette Gauguin had children, and therefore she developed a matronly-like body type. Michelle didn't have children. She thinks because of the difficulty she had rearing the children in a previous lifetime, that she from the very beginning said, "I will not have children." But she had surgery in midlife that left her body looking exactly like the matronly body of Mette Gauguin. So the story goes on in terms of things that happened to both of them, and as other people became interested in their work, they were challenged to, for example, Peter, who had never painted like Paul Gauguin, decided that he would try it because someone challenged, said, "Can you do it?" He would reproduce a painting of Gauguin that is very reminiscent, the same style, the same approach, the same brush, colors, and so on. So what he had in him all of these years were the latent talents and skills of Gauguin. He had not used them because he had developed his own skills. But this is another factor that Michelle learned very early on, which is important in the research that we're doing in the psychoplasm. The reincarnated person starts out with a legacy from that previous lifetime, and Michelle discovered in Peter's files some old sketches that he had done in his teens and early 20s that were very reminiscent of paintings that had been done by Gauguin in his 40s. And in my work with Peter Teekamp, I tried to gather his whole biographical history as much as I could, and he revealed at age 5 or 6 he was already painting portraits that were good enough in his school for him to be accepted by the friends that he had been thrown in with when he was put into this orphan school at age 5 and 6, he had the skills already. And Gauguin didn't start until his mid-20s. So this is an example of this progression. And Michel had discovered that as she compared the paintings, and I think we could show some of those to illustrate this process. Things that we require to actually go through our reincarnation experiment process is that the current personality has to agree to go through our psychological workup, because we want to make sure that we get good personality data. And so I went through that process with both Michel and with Peter, and what we do in that process is to learn about their developmental stages so we can compare those stages to the stages in the previous life. We develop corroboration of their interest in work styles. Well, now, obviously Peter is an artist, as Paul Gauguin was. Actually, Mette Gauguin learned to play the piano, gave piano lessons, and taught French to support the household of the Gauguin children and herself, while Gauguin was off in this South Pacific. Michel learned to play the piano on her own at an early age, turned down learning Spanish in her school, which was in the Hispanic area, to take French because she said, I have to take French. So we mine for information of this kind, which is either consistent with or inconsistent, because we want to make sure that we're not just cherry-picking the data, that you pick out the things that match, but you leave out the things that don't match. Because what we have to have is enough historical data to say the core of this personality is like the core of the past life personality, because the legacy that comes forward has all of these factors in it, in the strongest cases that we've had. I would say of the cases that we've looked at, the Gauguin case would be in the top, 10% of those cases. I mean, we don't have enough detail to say definitively that anyone is 100% certain to be the reincarnation of another one.